Welcome to the Fire Sprinkler Podcast with Chris and Logan. Introducing the reliable model MV medium velocity spray nozzle. MV nozzles are open directional spray nozzles designed for use in water spray fixed systems. Model MV nozzles are available in 8 deflector angles and 7 orifice sizes, providing a comprehensive range of options to protect exposed vertical, horizontal, curved, and irregular shaped surfaces. Reliable's library of 3D spray pattern blocks help designers visualize and confirm spray pattern coverage. Know before you flow with Reliable MV nozzle. Learn more at reliablesprinkler.com/MV.
Like and subscribe.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast. On this episode, I have Tom Multer from Reliable. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Chris. How about you?
It's still too early to tell.
Wait a minute, it's noon. It's lunchtime here. What's the deal?
There's a lot of day left for error. The kids aren't home from school. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in a little bit of time here. Super disappointed that we can't be having this conversation face to face with the NFSA recently announcing that they're going to push the event back until the spring. But here we are. Welcome to COVID.
Yes.
It's kind of been an expected thing over the past year and a half that all these meetings that you're anticipating and being able to shake hands and not shake hands and kiss babies, but all shaking hands and meeting with people only to become virtual anyways. I'm starting to get pretty comfortable with the virtual environment, I would think, with the podcast anyways, but how are you phasing out and working out with that?
Yeah, it hasn't been that bad. I thought it would be disappointing to not do everything in person, but yeah, I've had a lot of Zoom meetings in the last couple of years, so it's been good.
Once you get into the swing of things with the technology, it gets, it's almost better. You don't have to put pants on if you don't want to.
Right. And how did you know that I'm not?
No comment. Anyways.
I had to tell John and Lindsay that are in here with me this morning, this is a special occasion. I actually have long pants on today. I spend my retired life in shorts and t-shirts.
I still, a lot of people have been working from home. I've been working from home for the past year and a half. And when I first started working from home, I would do the whole, you wake up, you put sweatpants on and stuff like that. And I just found that I wasn't getting anything done when I was that comfortable. So I had to go back and, you put a good shirt on, you put on some nice pants, and, I don't put shoes on anymore, but you still have to get ready for the day.
Shaving, so today's a special occasion. I shaved. My shaving routine now is maybe every 2 or 3 days instead of every day. Still take the shower, but shaving.
I appreciate you dulling yourself up for the podcast. If you're listening to the podcast, feel free to shoot over to YouTube because the video is going to be up there. And
I had to break a Reliable shirt out of the closet too. So.
I'm sure you've got 1 or 2 of those hanging around.
I think I have 2 complete racks full of nothing but Reliable clothes.
That is something I don't have yet. I don't have a Reliable shirt, John. Anyways.
Take care of that. Well, no, I don't think the rule has changed before. If you didn't work for Reliable, you didn't have a shirt. In fact, we donate a lot of things to Goodwill and some of the other charities around here. If you donated a Reliable shirt, you were in big trouble.
So. Yeah, so is that right? That's good to know. I'm sure there's a few podcast shirt floating around the donation rack every once in a while. So, let's get kind of into it here. You recently have been nominated and received the confirmation that you're going to be into the NFSA's Sprinkler Hall of Fame this year.
Correct.
And assuming they don't just kind of dole those out to just anybody, you seem like you're a good, important person to have on the podcast and kind of talk about your history in the industry.
Well, see, you don't realize how happy I am to be here to be able to receive that award, because all the time that I was involved in the industry, we called that the 10 Toes Up Award. You were not alive when you received that award.
Is that right? Really?
In the last few years, that's correct. So
awesome.
It's kind of a real honor to get it now, for sure. So.
That's good. You can put it up on the mantle and it can sit there for 20 years, right?
You're right.
So how long have you been involved in the fire sprinkler industry?
I I actively involved completely for 46 years, and I've done some consulting work in the last couple of years, so 48 years.
48 years in the industry.
Mhm.
What got you involved in the sprinkler industry? Like, what was the thing when you were? I'm assuming you were a kid at one point. What was that thing when you were a kid that said, you know what, sprinkler's going to be my thing. That's what I want to get into.
Well, let's see. I, I guess I'd have to go back to my education and growing up to really
Mhm.
start with that. I grew up in a construction family. My dad was a superintendent. My uncles worked in the trades. Um, I my life kind of changed when I was in high school. Not only would I help them on certain projects that I poured concrete in the summers and a lot of other stuff in college and high school. And in high school, my favorite class was drafting. And my teacher, the only teacher's name that I remember, his name was Bob Hall, nicest man in the world. And I love drafting. We taught architecture and I won some architectural awards. And so I just loved that part of construction. And then to actually, there were some houses built off my drawings, and to go out and see them start up and get finished, it was just really a cool thing.
In high
So
school?
this was in high school. Yeah.
Wow.
And so then when I went to college, University of Nebraska, and I started out in mechanical engineering. And my first year when we were in analytic geometry and I was graphing an ellipse, I go, who in the world's ever going to graph an ellipse in their life, right? So I decided I'd become an architect instead. So I changed the school of architecture. But that was before computers, and I learned to be an architect. You really needed to be an artist, and I couldn't make a stick man look like a stick dog or horse. I mean, it was terrible. I could not draw. It was good on a drafting board, but not good. So what's left? I got to change a major again, and because again the teacher I had and my love of drafting, I decided to go into education. And so in education, what's the picks? Well, construction science, yes, did that.
Yep.
Industrial arts, industrial management. So a lot of things I learned in education were from the classes that I took in that, and it just kept me involved in construction that way.
So you started in high school with like I'm assuming like a basic high school level drafting course. And
Correct. Actually, we were lucky in our school system. We actually started drafting in junior high, and then you
wow.
continued it on in high school. So.
But how did somebody come and say, you know what, that house that kid's drawing over there, I want to build that house. How did that come through?
We had our contest actually, and I
Oh, okay.
won several, and so
Is it still standing?
um, probably good grief, that was 60 years ago, I guess. Well, it
60.
might be. It might be torn down, turned into a shopping center by now.
That's odd. That's impressive. I mean, there's not too many kids in high school that go on to, well, I would say not go on to. I got a few buddies that are architects and engineers and stuff like that now, but designing a house. And did they put you through that entire process of um, from the original design through the construction? Were you involved with that, or was it like a simple floor
I
plan and then they built
basically,
that house?
no, I would go out and check on it occasionally, but yeah, once it got turned over to a contractor, here I am, a 15, 16, 17-year-old kid there,
Yeah,
not going to have me out there supervising the job. So. But it
that's
was fun.
awesome. So then you got into the education things. What kind of steered you in the direction of fire protection?
Well, unfortunately, that was during Vietnam. So when I graduated college, I was getting drafted. So I decided to go ahead and enlist and kind of help my future a little bit. So I enlisted and went to infantry officer candidate school and armor basic and spent 3 years in the Army. And I kind of wanted to stay, but my first wife didn't particularly like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I love Columbus, Georgia. I was getting out of the Army at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I love the South, love the people, never wanted to go north again in my life. And I had a teacher's certificate, but the pay was so poor then as it is now that, and as an officer in the Army, I was making pretty good money. So I got to find something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually went to a job fair for officers that were getting out. And one of the companies there was Automatic Sprinkler Company.
Okay.
And So I got an offer from them, and it was for Cleveland, Ohio, and I went, you don't have any interest in that.
Right.
And it happened to be I was going through the local newspaper there in Columbus, and there was an ad for someone with a college education and had good drafting and math skills. And I go, well, that sounds cool. Didn't know what it was, but I went to apply, and it turned out to be sprinklers too. So my life was set off in sprinklers. And I took that job, and it was probably the best learning experience ever in the sprinkler industry, because I was hired as an engineer. You know, back then we had the privilege of being called engineers, and the engineers didn't like that. So now everybody's stuck with designer. And I think you'd ask the designers out there if they don't think they do engineering, and I believe they would tell you they did.
No comment.
Yeah. But I started out in the field, and that was the best experience I could ever have being a fitter. I learned that a piece of 8-inch pipe was really heavy. It didn't bend, you know, it wasn't
Yeah.
just a line on a drawing somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the first year I worked out in the field, did a little shop work, and then finally I got brought into the office, and the owner of the company was a fitter, and the head engineer had quit, or the only engineer they had quit. So he threw Grinnell pipe book at me in an NFPA 13 and said, "Here, learn how to design sprinklers." So
Figure it out.
I did, sink or swim. But
Awesome.
luckily, when I was I had to go to Atlanta from Columbus, Georgia, to get our plans reviewed by IRI and who else was around? Anyway, the insurance companies.
Yep.
FM was there too. And so I would go up there to get the plans reviewed. And I was so fortunate that the guys that would review the plans, would sit down and go over them. They taught me everything about designing systems.
Right.
So I really got my education from the approval authorities.
It was
And
like a
great.
pass fail. It wasn't just a pass fail mentality that it is now. It was all okay. So here's what we
Correct.
need to approve.
Yeah, it
Here's what
was
we
like,
need to
if you
do.
just
Go
change
through it.
this, you should look at things like this.
Right.
So that was where I got my true sprinkler education. But I should go back and say, having grown up in construction families, even my sister was a project manager, had I ever paid attention to sprinklers before? No, not really, but
Yeah.
turned out
So,
to be the greatest thing that could have ever happened.
so you started out, how long were you on the tools board before you moved over to the office?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
How long were you on the tools for before you switched out and
It
started
was
drawing?
right, a little a year, a little over.
Yeah.
At night, I would even work in the shop some, so it's kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool. I think that, I mean, I say it because I did it, but I think going from the tools to the design thing was the best thing that I ever did as well. I'm still a fitter. I still go out. I still put pipe in every once in a while if we're really, really busy, and doing the inspections and stuff like that. Understanding how the pipe fits into a building goes a long way.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. Over the 21 years I was involved in contracting, I'd spent other times out as a fitter too. It was always fun to be out in the field.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. The joke I make with the guys now, I designed for our family business and I still install a little bit is, the pipe isn't that heavy when I'm moving it around with my mouse right now. Why are you guys struggling with it? It's, get it up on your shoulder and go. It didn't take me that long to draw it.
Yeah, but see, you're young. We still had the threaded pipe and uh,
I
schedule
was gonna,
40.
I was gonna ask you if the 8-inch when you were putting it in was threaded or a groove, but I didn't want
It was threaded.
to. Oh boy, the glory
Cane
days.
tongs, come along to get it up in the air. Oh yeah, it's fun.
Back when men were men.
Yeah.
What you'll say, huh? In all this time, how much of a change in the fire protection industry have you seen?
Oh my.
Obviously now we're going from skid 40 8-inch pipe to skid 10, everything grooved. How have you seen the industry change as a whole, for the better or the worse? Let's start with the worst and then let's clean it up at the end.
Well, I truthfully, I only see good. I don't really
Okay.
see bad things that have happened in our industry.
Right.
And in fact, when I was writing my bio for the award, I kind of did a thing where I really was fortunate, I think, to live through the golden age of sprinklers. Not that it's
Mhm.
not going to keep progressing, but It's kind of like my grandparents, you know, they saw it went from horse and buggies to jet airplanes. Well, started out with Schedule 40 screwed pipe. Okay. Then groove couplings came along.
Yep.
And then welding, then
Yep.
light wall. That changed everything as far as installation. When I was first designing pipe schedule systems, okay, with 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch sprinklers. And then we got huge sprinklers after that, as you know.
Yeah.
But the main thing that happened again was hydraulic calculation. I was fortunate that I think it was Star Sprinkler back then, and John Crowley. I don't know why his name pops up, but there was a guy named John Crowley, who for Star Sprinkler, who was teaching hydraulic classes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fortunate to go to one of those probably in my second year of being a designer. And I picked it up. I loved it. Well, I'd worked for my uncle too as an electrician, and electrical and hydraulics is a lot the same, the size of the wire, the friction loss, all that kind of stuff. So I understood the principles, but I really loved it when I got into it. It was like I could visualize the water flowing through the pipes and all that kind of stuff. So the contractor I was working for loved it because we would bid jobs, pipe schedule, and then I'd redesign them and turn them into a calculated system and take half the pipe out and the size of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then I learned how to do loops by reading Wood's book on biking on calculating. So I learned how to do loops, and that made it even better. So then I was doing sales instead of designing anymore, and kind of got into more into the sales aspect. But so from pipe schedule to hydraulic calculations, it made a huge difference.
So that was probably one of the biggest changes industry-wise that.
Yeah. Again, I guess you got to look at it both ways. For the fitters, going from the Schedule 40 screwed to the thin wall welded coupled and all that.
Yeah.
For the designer and sales, it was definitely going to the hydraulic calculations.
Right.
Yeah. And then, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I had Hasu Doshi, one of the guys who was instrumental in developing the hydraulic calculations on the podcast years ago. And just kind of hearing him speak about the development process and where they came from, there was say 10 of them in a room, and they were trying to figure out the math of the hydraulic calculation. And it's if you haven't heard that episode yet, anybody listening or yourself, go back and listen to it, because he's a super nice guy, super soft-spoken guy, and it was a really good conversation. That was about 2 years ago. Hasu Doshi. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I was fortunate about, by then, after I had moved to Atlanta and was working for another contractor, and then eventually started a company. But when I started the company, Hal Sanders, Haas, calculation system. Okay. Yep. We ended up being good friends through the Georgia Fire Sprinkler Association. And so I guinea pigged his first program. And then we got into the grid business, which was really interesting.
Yep.
But it was still fun. I mean, I'm a little Texas Instruments calculator, about the size of a phone now, and an old printer sitting on a group coupling carton in my office, had all that on there. And you would start your calculations at 5. We never left at 5, but in the evening when you left the office, and hopefully in the morning when you got back, they would be done if the printer hadn't run out of paper.
Yeah.
So the hydraulics part, especially when it got to be computerized like it is now, that it was amazing what you could do with systems, of money that you could save with a good system designs that you could come up with.
Yeah, and I'm assuming even when you went from the all the hand drawn stuff and hand calculations, you were talking about the automatic hydraulic calculations, but even switching over to the computer aided design, CAD drawings,
Great.
stuff like that, Unreal 3D rendering, BIM and Revit and stuff like that. Yes. Is like you're playing a video game when you're drawing sprinkler now.
Yeah, but when we get to the part about what designers should look for now, I would still encourage every designer to have a feel for doing the calculations by hand, because it gives you so much of a better feel of what size pipe to start with and what size design to start with, if you know the principles of doing it by hand. And I think that's the same with CAD drawing. So.
just start by hand and then kind of work backwards from there. When I was in trade school, we had to do all manual calculations for our intermediate and advanced courses. And I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't obviously like back then I was kid, right? Let's put pipe in, let's put pipe in. But you know, I secretly with my class enjoyed the hydraulic calculations aspect of the course a lot as well, right? When everybody was complaining about it, I was like, yeah, this sucks. And pen to paper and plugging it out.
It was fun. It was like doing simple math back in school again.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I struggled with it at the beginning, but I was out of school for a little while when I started doing it, right? I didn't go immediately into college. I went and started spinning wrenches right out of high school. What you've been involved in the product development aspect of the industry as well, correct?
Correct.
What
Yep.
give me your top list of the products that you've had your hand in developing, and then your absolute feather in the cap. You still have one sitting on your fireplace at home, crowning achievement.
Well, I'll get into products, but I'll tell you I think one of my best achievements was starting the technical services group here at Reliable.
Oh yeah, okay.
That, before we get into products, because at the time, really manufacturers weren't doing anything to help their customers much with immediate phone calls and that. We started that group up to help our customers answer their questions about not only about products, but we got a lot of questions about codes and standards and everything else too, which we really weren't supposed to give answers to, but
Yeah.
we tried to help people.
Help the customer. Yep.
Yeah. And that worked out so well. The only thing, it got to be so popular that it was kind of like every contractor thought we had an F-16 sitting out here on the runway that we'd be at their job site, in an hour and a half or two. So but, that was a really good thing. And I think a lot of the other manufacturers have started to get into that too, but we definitely started that aspect here at Reliable.
The technical services
Technical
aspect
service.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, when I left, I think we had 8 or 9. There might be 13 or 14 now. Lindsay, do you know? Yeah, some large number anyway. We got them scattered all over the country.
You got a crew anyways. You got a lot of
actually.
guys. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I've spoken with a bunch of them. Kerry Weber, I've had on the podcast a couple times now. Super smart guy. Always a great conversation to have with him as well. Always willing to help. And hard to stump. All very well educated guys, hard guys to stump in the technical services.
It was an unbelievable group. Kerry's managing that group now, but we had some good managers before. We had Mike Brown and David Aspen, and they were really, really good at what they did. And again, we've moved internationally now too, so we have our international guys.
All right, so now that's your crowning achievement, is the technical services department at Reliable.
Yes.
What about product wise?
Products. Okay. I'm named on probably a little over 70 patents, and my favorite product was one that my name is not on. But I kept pushing that thing.
Yep.
K22 ESFR. Everybody was making K25s, and I said, why can't we develop an optimum sprinkler that, uses the same pressure, but because of the lower K factor, puts out less water.
Yeah.
So we got the 22 developed, and it's been a good product for us.
From a design point of view, that's probably my most used ESFR right now.
Oh yeah, and now I think all the other manufacturers have gotten one themselves. Yep. The N252 EC, the extended coverage storage pendant, another good one. Probably one of my favorites too was the deck hall sprinkler, to look at a sidewall to spray sideways, instead of spray out. Residential sprinklers, when everything kept changing around and the density and the flow requirements and all that, I picked what I thought were the best K factors for every spacing, and that turned out to be the other manufacturers after a while. It seemed like they all changed to the K factors we used.
Which ones would those be? Would those be the like the ones that I'm using a lot in residentials, like 4.9 and 3.0?
That's correct.
Yeah. Awesome.
I mean, there's so many things. Valves, segmented trims, which really help the fitters. Low pressure tri-pipe valve.
Yep.
Now
Had your
there's
hand
a line of everything. So.
had your hand in a lot of different things in the industry. That's awesome.
It was just fun. I didn't realize I like product development so much, but even when I was in contracting, I had 3 or 4 patents on different things that were sprinkler related. And
Really?
so, when Reliable hired me, I was like in heaven. I started out here as taking care of the, what was that, technical services manager, no, special systems manager. Anyway,
Okay.
I was
Yeah.
a deluge in reaction because I'd done a lot of work for Delta doing hangars and things, so I knew a lot about deluge and reaction systems.
Awesome. That's a lot of different products, and you've had your hands in a lot. It's not just sprinklers, right? You develop the valves, develop the different aspects of the industry. That's really cool. What
And I have to go back and say though, I just lost.
keep going. Yep, keep going.
All right.
Camera just froze.
Yeah. My title was, when I retired, Vice President of Product Technology, and I was mostly involved again with tech services and product development, but it's not a one-person thing. I mean, I'd come up with crazy ideas, and a lot of them bombed out. I'd come up with good ideas, but it was always a group. We had it, we'd even walking down the hallway, if somebody had an idea, man, we'd been in the conference room trying to flesh out that idea and come up with a product for it.
Figure out how it works. Yeah. That's awesome. That's like the fun thing in the industry, because right now, I will say in the past 5 years, the industry has evolved so much with new products out there. And I see it as a positive and a negative. I do see some organizations out there that are trying to find problems or trying to find solutions for problems that don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As opposed to listening to what the customers are saying, and the installers and the fitters and the designers and stuff like that. They're saying, oh, this is good and it's worked for the past 80 years, but why don't we do it completely different and sell it to them? And I just don't see it as a good way for the industry to go. But
well, that I would hope that one of the advantages I had coming out of the field and out of the contracting end was that I could relate to contractors, and I did. I'd be out talking to the fitters and designers and managers of the companies, and we came up with ideas. There were several ideas that I definitely got from contractor visits and talking to the fitters about what they would like to see.
I've had to almost put a nuzzle on myself, because I find myself just talking about all these ideas on podcasts and stuff like that, and then somebody else will come out and make the idea, and it's like, oh wow, that's selling pretty good. That's a good idea you had there. I got to just say patent pending at the end of every episode. So
That's
any
it.
idea I talk about.
There were a lot of things I made the mistake of not getting patented before I talked about them. So.
Yeah, talking over beers too much, I think.
One other thing that I forgot. Again, when I started off, and there were 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch sprinklers and 5.6 and 8 and to evolve up to the size of the sprinklers now, I think there's a 33 out in the market right now, or something
34,
like that.
yeah.
34, okay. Well, this is ironic, because back when the sprinkler race sort of started to get bigger and bigger K factors, one of my old friends, Mike Brown, that worked here at Reliable with me, we were sitting around town one day having a cup of coffee, and we go, someday there's going to be a K factor sprinkler of 400. You're going to go into a grocery store and put one sprinkler in the middle of it, and it'll just take care of the whole thing. And I hope we don't get there, but that's kind of the way it seemed like we were trying to go for a long time.
You'll just have a 12-inch line run into the middle of the store.
Yeah.
Well,
the fire pump guys would have been happy, but the sprinkler contractor wouldn't have much pipe to put in.
The restoration as well. The restoration companies will be super happy about that as well. There's a balance between how far we space them and the amount of water we put out versus the damage that we're gonna. You got to kind of we want to keep the damage down, protect the property and life, reduce the damage, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, the way the green world is going now, we'd have to worry about collecting that water so it wouldn't kill a minnow out in the drain line somewhere.
Every building that goes up is going to have a moat around it.
Right.
new people coming into the industry. There's a lot of new people out there that are kind of innovating the way that we're teaching industry people, fitters, designers, estimators, etc. What advice do you have for anybody that's starting out in the field, that's just coming out of college, just coming out of high school, and is starting to look at the fire protection industry? What direction do you point them in, and what kind of advice do you have for them to get their feet wet?
Well, first of all, they're entering a great industry. I mean, again, I was very, very fortunate that I got to enter an industry that you save lives and property. I mean, that's kind of hard to beat. And plus, a lot of people like me, you like to be out in the field occasionally too. You don't want to be stuck behind a desk all the time, so that's good. Fitters, let's start with them. Look, I did a lot of judging for the UA apprenticeship contests, and I love being around the fitters. And they offer such great programs now, like 669 and union programs, to train people and guarantee them almost a job when they complete their training. Veterans in piping, being a veteran, I always thought that was great, because again, those guys coming out, they're very good workers, very detailed, very prepared to do any kind of job. But again, if you go into that field, you're going to make good money. You're guaranteed a job almost when you get out.
Right.
I don't know, I guess, again, where they learn about doing that is a shame, because there's really, again, we're all pushing college education. You got to, free this college, and you got to have a degree. And I know you don't. Fitters make good money, have a great job. So it's a shame, we don't have ads on TV going, want to be a sprinkler fitter, and call number such and such.
Yeah.
But that's a great job for somebody that has good hand skill, mechanical skill, and would like to do that, make good money, and be a good industry. Designers, probably the same thing. Who knows about it? I mean, when I was in college, did they say, "Oh, you want to take a course in sprinkler design"? No.
Yeah.
So it's better promotion. Right now, I think if it's like it was when I was still actively working, it's word of mouth. You bring in relatives, friends, it's kind of the only way they find out. But again, lucrative trade, you learn a lot. Just a good position to be in. A lot of great companies out there to work for.
And you can never, it's never an industry where, and I mean, I'm sure you can say this too, being involved 50 years. Just a random question off the cuff. What % of this industry do you think you know?
This % of it that I know?
Yep. 50%, 75%. How much of the industry do you think you've got down?
Wow. I'd be going heavy at 50%. Yeah.
It's an industry that you can never stop learning, right?
No.
You'll never, the mentality for fitters, the issue that I'm seeing having a lot of fitter friends in industry, people that I know and discuss, I talk sprinkler every day. So it's something that I'm aware of, is when people get out of school, they go to school, trade school, 4-year apprenticeship, 5-year apprenticeship, depending on where you're from. And all of a sudden, that's it. I got my ticket, I'm done. And that's not the industry. The NFPA 13 changes every 3 years. They're constantly changing the standards. They're changing the codes. There's new products that are coming out. It's not a stagnant industry that you can finish school and just be done with. Continuing education is always going to be a thing. It's always a thing to talk. I mean, talking sprinkler is a good way, even communicating with your coworkers and stuff like that. Coffee breaks, stuff like that is always the way to kind of stay current with the trade. The code book, I'm a 3rd generation sprinkler fitter. I got a 9-year-old son. He doesn't know it yet, but he's a 4th generation sprinkler fitter. It's just a time thing. Standard when my old man graduated trade school was this big. And the standard when I graduated trade school is encyclopedia, right?
That's it.
And it's constantly evolving and constantly staying up to standard, up to the latest codes and trends and industry information.
That's a really good point. And in fact, going back to even the fitters, the designers, and the company owners, managers, you're right. They're always learning, and the associations are a good place to learn things.
Yep.
Being involved in the technical committees, which I was fortunate to be on a lot of those over the years. The Engineering and Standards Committee at NFSA, can't beat that. I mean,
Right.
even if you're not a member of it, if you want to learn something, go there and just observe one of their meetings and listen to what goes on.
Just good conversations.
Correct. And the other thing is that I know Reliable does this, and we have a lot of training seminars for our customers and internally. Listen to the manufacturers, talk to them and see what they've got coming out, what they think. They can provide you a lot of insight into not only into the industry, but what they see as the future, what the future is going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're listening to this just for Tom here, also subscribe to the Fire Sprinkler podcast. This guy talks sprinkler all the time. There's other
probably
industry.
The best advice you could give right there.
That's just good advice. But there's other industry podcasts out there too. NFPA's got one, the Fire Protection Podcast. Gus Gagliardo's got one, the Fire Code Tech. His is more of an engineering standpoint. But they're all resources are out there. So social media, you got to be careful with how you pick and choose which information you take as fact and which you don't. But there's a lot of resources out there in the industry for learning and staying current with it. Manufacturers are constantly putting out educational seminars. That's huge in this industry and staying kind of up to date. We've been chatting for a while here, so now I want to kind of talk about your induction into the NFSA Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you? You touched on a little bit earlier about actually being able to physically hold the copy of it when you receive it. What does that mean to you after all your years of service in the industry, which thank you very much. What does it mean to get that award and get elected for that? How does that feel?
Yeah, but again, I was shocked when I got the call because again, 10 toes up, I'm still alive. I'm getting that.
I'm not supposed to get this yet.
It's a real honor because I've been to those awards and I see the people that got them and hear the things that they had done, and to be a part of that company, it just makes me feel special. Like, well, maybe I was a benefit to the sprinkler industry. Maybe I was a benefit to the Reliable. I hope I was. So it really makes you feel appreciated for the things you've done. Probably I don't have any other award that would even come close to what this means, to know that I dedicated 48 years of my life to fire sprinklers, and
so far,
and wow, I get awarded for that.
Yeah, so, 48 years so far.
So far, yeah. Well, if you need any consulting work,
hey, there you go. All you got to do is call the technical services department at Reliable, and
yeah. Well, they do it for free. I charge it.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, smart businessman. Awesome, Tom. Is there anybody you want to thank? Anything you want to say before we wrap this up here?
Yeah, well, if my wife was here, I would definitely thank her for putting up with me for 46 years and counting. And the fact that she had to take her, one of the nice things, is a nice thing? Yeah, it was a great thing working for Reliable because I've traveled the world. I mean, the country, the world. I've been in every state, most every country. I've gone a lot, so she had to take care of the home fires, and it was so good of her to do that and take care of the family while I was gone. Then the Fee family, I mean, they were amazing to bring me on. That was, well, it was a funny story. I had to interview with all the brothers around the table and up in New York. They were hitting me 3 at a time with all the questions. And so then I go back home and they said they want my grade transcripts from college. And I go, oh my God, that's 23 years ago. We're going to find those things. And as I said at my retirement dinner, evidently they never looked at them when they got them, or they never hired me. A lot of fun in college. The grades weren't that good.
That's all right.
But no, they gave me a chance, and Kevin Fee in particular brought me in and let me do the things that I love to do. And it was always like, go do it and come tell me what you did. So,
awesome.
Just a great place to work, great family. It's a Reliable family. I think the people sitting here in the room with me say the same thing. Just a great place to work. I mean, I was crying my eyes out when I drove out here for the last time. That was terrible.
Awesome. Well, it's been an honor to talk to you. Congratulations on winning what sounds like a very well-deserved award, and super happy that I can actually have a conversation with you, and we don't chalk another one up to the 10 Toes Up Award. And hopefully in the next near future, I can actually meet you, shake your hand.
That would be great.
Whatever we're doing at the time.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me be on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for coming and telling me your story.
Okay.
Thanks.
See ya.
Hey everyone, this episode of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast is done. If you liked this episode, leave a review, comment, or hop over to my social media pages and let me know. Just search Fire Sprinkler Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't forget to hashtag Fire Sprinkler Podcast and anything you think I should know about or see. If you have any suggestions for future episodes of the Fire Sprinkler Podcast, email info@firesprinklerpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Take care.